Welcome, everybody, to another Equipment Zone webinar. I'm Jay Bussell, and I am thrilled. I don't know that these three gentlemen have ever been in an interview together before. Maybe they have. I don't think they have. They can correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm excited because we have literally a wealth of information. This is like three encyclopedias for you old school folks. Those were the books we used to go to where we could actually look up data, read things, learn things, and we have three experts at my hand at the ready. So I'm going to give them each a bio, a proper bio. Normally we don't do this. We kind of goof off, we make jokes, we get silly. But today I think this is an important time for us to really just kind of get right into it. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So we have Marshall Atkinson joining us. We have Geoffrey Baxter joining us. We have Terry Combs joining us, and I'm going to give a brief bio and then welcome them each so that when they speak, you'll be able to hear from them, see them, and then we're going to dive into the content. So first we have Marshall Atkinson. Marshall is here in Arizona with the other folks in Arizona. Terry and I happen to also be here. Marshall is one of the leading production and efficiency experts for decorated apparel industry. He's the owner of Atkinson Consulting, LLC. And as a coach, Atkinson focuses on operational efficiencies, continuous improvement, workflow strategy, business planning, marketing, employee motivation management, and sustainability. Marshall, that's a mouthful. But here's what I do know about Marshall. He is an awesome trade show speaker, an awesome author, and he has a fabulous YouTube show. So if you haven't seen Adventures in Apparel Decorating, which is the show that he does with jerseys, or if you haven't seen his podcast, Success Stories with Marshall Atkinson, which was sponsored by SNS Activewear, you're missing out. You need to check in on both of those. Marshall's also released several ebooks for our industry, top 10 workflow tips, Shop Basic Info Pack, Price for Profit, which I think is really important, and T-shirt texture tricks. He has a new book, Moving Past Disaster, which was released in May of 2020. And really what you need to know about Marshall is all of his ebooks, all of his online courses, everything he's done, and as well as his shop coaching plans and several hundred industry blogs are all found on his website, atkinsonshirt.com. Marshall, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing excellent, Jay. Checks in the mail. That was really great. It said you messed up the web page. It's AtkinsonT-shirt.com.
Oh, well, thank you for correcting me. Now we get to say it again. Maybe I did it on purpose. AtkinsonT-shirt.com is the place you want to go for all of his ebooks, online courses, coaching, etc. Marshall's a friend of mine, most importantly to the bio. I appreciate his service to all of the things that he does. He does it with 100%, and he is a wonderful, wonderful friend. So thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Geoff Baxter. Geoff is also an industry expert and has served as the Director of Business Development at Kornit Digital. That's kind of a big deal. Also director at M&R's Digital Products Division. Also a very big deal. While at M&R, Geoff was the inventor of the digital squeegee from concept all the way through to finished production. He has 35 plus years in this industry, was the president and co-founder of Atlantic Screen Supply Incorporated, has had several management positions and high profile, high visibility companies like Logo 7, Harlequin Nature Graphics, Advanced Process Supply Company, and Precision Screen Machines. He's also written, like Marshall, like Terry, he's also written numerous articles for trade publications, been a lecturer, been a speaker at industry events. So Geoff has been around the block a time or two. He's currently an industry consultant and a freelancer, and the best place to reach him is on LinkedIn. Geoff Baxter, how are you?
Good, Jay. Thank you. That was a great introduction. I
Hey,
kind of want to hire myself at this point after that. So.
Listen, if you need a hype man, I know a guy. And the truth is, I'm excited. This is so fun for me because you three have serious amounts of experience, and we're lucky to get you all at the same place at the same time and record this because I know what you guys are going to deliver today is more than just wisdom. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be, for some people, I think, a real eye opener. So I'm excited. And last and certainly least, wait, that didn't come out right. Last and certainly not least, my good friend Terry Combs, who is a co-worker of mine. Terry, man, it's been a while. Terry is a 40-year veteran. He has also been in the garment decorating apparel business for quite some time. He's managed production shops, both large and small, across the United States. He's written hundreds of management and technical articles for garment publications, as have our other guests. He has spoken at many of our industry events worldwide. Terry has been involved in the development, marketing, and sales of DTG printing basically since it started. He might argue with me a little bit, but let's call it more than 15 years. He is currently a senior sales rep at Equipment Zone. Terry, when I use the word senior sales rep, I mean in terms of experience, not age. And Mr. Combs is indeed half of the dynamic duo from the Two Regular Guys podcast and live streaming show, the #1 apparel decoration podcast show in our industry. Terry Combs, how the hell are you?
Thanks, Jay. That was a great introduction as well. And hey, how hard was it to do alphabetical order? We're A, B, and C. What?
I know it took me all morning to figure that one out.
And Jeff and I used to work together back in Precision Screen days, if
What?
that tells you anything. And then Marshall was packed into a car with myself and two other people for that 5-hour drive to Palm Springs and back a couple of years ago for ThreadX. So,
that was
we
a lot of fun. And Aaron only recorded part of that trip. He should have recorded the whole car ride, I think.
it was myself and Marshall, Aaron Montgomery, and Eric Campbell, and yeah, we recorded lots of episodes for the Two Regular Guys podcast on the way there at ThreadX and then on the way back. But yeah, we lost a lot of great information and just chit chatting, stopping at Quick Trip.
I can only imagine the amount of shenanigans that were happening on that car ride. Well,
and the two tallest guys in the industry were in the backseat of my Honda for the whole trip.
This is true. Marshall is a tall individual, as is Eric Campbell. I am not. I am challenged with the vertical height. But well, let's dive in. We've got a lot of folks that are excited and have joined, have taken the time to be here. I've prepared a few questions and I gave you guys some information and some insight. Really, we're going to just have a conversation today. And so thank you again to all of you for being here. My special guests are the experts of this. So if you haven't seen this, let me share this one more time. This is kind of a big deal to get your, look at this. Look at these guys. These are the winners. These are the experts in our industry. I kind of framed this discussion this way because I get this question so often, whether it's through our Facebook groups, through email, through chat. We used to go to trade shows and people would ask us this question: when is the right time to add digital garment printing? And so rather than me try to fumble my way through it, I thought, who better to ask? And especially at this time. And here's what I mean by that. Right now, we've seen kind of a shift away from some of the, what I call one-off DTG printers, to machines that are a little bit larger, that do higher volume or bigger quantities, more production. And I know Geoff Baxter, having been at Kornit, and I know Marshall, having coached hundreds of shops, he's seen it all from little things to big things. I thought, let's get these three folks, as well as Terry, in the room, ask these experts about that. When is the right time? And so that's really our kickoff question, is when is the right time to add digital garment printing? And so I want to open it up to all of you, and let's just follow that format of alphabetical, if you don't mind. So for this opening question, Marshall, then Terry, then Geoff, what would you say, Marshall, to someone who's got experience? In fact, let's frame this as somebody who's already a screen printer or an embroiderer, or somehow already engaged in decorated apparel. They're not brand new to the industry. What would you say to them if they were looking for a coach to coach them through this question?
Well, to me, the place to start is always going to be with your customer. I know a lot of people who've actually bought DTG equipment and it just sat over there in the corner and they never used it. And then they tell you that DTG doesn't work. And I'll tell you, there's tons of people who absolutely make a fortune using DTG because they have a business case for it. And so it's really just like everything, it's 100% about your customer, right? So if your minimum order is 1,000 pieces, DTG might not be for you, right? But if you've got customers who have a need for low volume, high color, or print on demand, or they have an online store, or there's anything that you're going to be able to want to turn things quickly with a really great decoration. And that's something that I think you should really focus on, right? So you really need to combine your customer's problem with a unique solution. And that should get you thinking the right way about it. And I would also argue that you need to write, and I say this all the time, Jay, a business plan, right? Write
Yes.
a little mini business plan
Yes.
about how you're going to pull in the orders that you're going to be sending to the DTG equipment. How are you going to handle production? Who is going to be doing it for you? How are you going to do the artwork workflow? All that kind of stuff. This is really key to making a successful DTG program work, is really understanding it's about solving your customer's problem, not, hey, I really want a shiny new print toy in my shop.
Excellent point.
That's what I would start with.
I'm not at all surprised that you were able to weave in a business plan into that, Marshall, because I know that's a key component to a lot of your training and your core beliefs. And you're right there, and I'm not teasing you on that point. I think that was a smart move. Let's kick to Geoff Baxter. Jeff, when is the right time to add digital garment printing to my business?
Well, I think it depends, like Marshall said, on the specific business plan of the company involved. But I think that there's a big difference now in that over the last 15 years, there's been a huge evolution in the technology. If you bought into it 10 years ago, you were an early adopter and probably had a number of issues, and you had head clogging. And so I think at this point, you have to look at the technology and realize that it's changed dramatically. It was fun in the old days, but old days being 10 or 15 years ago, but there were a lot of repurposed printers that were used, and they were slow. They might have printed a beautiful shirt, but they took 8 minutes and it cost $3 to $4 in consumables. So it was a very limited business model that supported that. It was the one-offs. It was the small quantity e-commerce fulfillment. But as machines have gotten faster, CPP, cost per print, has gone down. The number of substrates that can be printed has gone up. Now it's much more mainstream. It's more of a production system. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about where I see that later on. But I think you have to look at the fact that it is production. And I think those tipping points of where it makes sense to print digitally versus screen have gone up dramatically. It used to be maybe a dozen shirts. Now I think it can sometimes, in some situations, can be 300, 400, 500 shirts are better to print digitally based upon the throughput of the equipment that you have, the cost of the consumables, and so forth.
Excellent answer. I love that. And yes, we will get into some of those other finer points. Thank you, Jeff. Terry, to you, what do you see? You've been around the block. In fact, you had a previous career at US Screen Print and Inkjet Technology. They added
Indeed.
the inkjet technology to the end. What do you think about this? You've kind of seen it and been there from the beginning of those early machines.
Yeah, the
I'm sure
original.
you were probably saying back then this was the right time to add digital garment printing.
Well, I remember Scott Fresner saying, "Hey, come and take a look at this." And it was the T-Jet 1, but it was just the T-Jet because just like World War I didn't become World War I until World War II, right?
Didn't have a number yet. It was just
Didn't have a
the
number
T-Jet.
yet. But I remember standing there next to Scott Fresner watching that print a full color image, and I said, I think everything just changed in garment decorating. And he goes, I think it did too. Now, Scott believed that it was going to replace screen printing right now today. In fact, he would say that to our screen printing classes, and I'd say, no, absolutely not. It's just going to be another tool for us to use. But no matter what size shop you are, maybe you're a garage screen printer, maybe you're a screen printer that has 8 automatics. Digital decorating is going to be a part of your business because, first of all, Jay, it's an Amazon world. I want one. I want it custom. I want it now. And that's going to be true of all of our customers. And COVID has done something for us. We were already in that growth area of online stores and setting up stores for our customers. And COVID accelerated that 100 times. So to fulfill those type of orders, a lot of times you need some kind of digital method to decorate them because, when you set up that store with 8 items and they bought 100 of this and 200 of that and 3 of these, well, 3 of these over here, no screen printer wants to set up to do these 3 over here. So, and lastly, your customer today knows that short run production is available to them. And if you can't give it to them, they're going to go someplace else. So it's, when somebody comes in and says, well, why can't you do 3? I can go online and get 3. I can go down the street and get 3. You got to get on board or be left behind, in my opinion.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your real opinion and not sugarcoating it. I think that's also some of the value that each of you bring in your answers. So thank you for keeping it real. And it's okay that you might, by the way, have differing opinions. I doubt that you will. I think that'll be the takeaway for all of those that have tuned in today and those that will watch later. They will see what this means when you have a panel of experts and they're pretty much agreeing. There may be some variables that they don't totally agree on, but, or, we're not even going to bring up brands unless it comes up naturally. That wasn't the point of our session today. So that was a perfect segue to this next question. And what I wanted to share with you was this idea of transition or movement or evolution, what we thought we knew 10 years ago versus what we've learned in the last 10 months. Things can dramatically shift and dramatically change. And I think that they have. So if you did such a wonderful job just a minute ago of telling us when was the right time, it sounds like you said now is the right time to at least plan, figure out, and then take action on adding digital garment printing to your business. My next question is going to be more specifically to what's happening. Like what is this trend? What is the decorated apparel market and where is it headed? And so I think that's a broad question, but it's really interesting because I believe that you'll have three different answers and all three will be epic. Marshall, I want to kick it to you first. Where do you see the industry going? I like to call us, we're on the island of misfit toys. And how else would we still be here in this industry? But the decorated apparel market's moving, it shifts. And where's it headed? What do you think? What do you see?
Well, to me, there's a huge movement in the print on demand idea, right? So this is a sustainable idea because you're only printing the shirts that are actually being sold. So you're not printing 400 shirts and then hopefully we'll sell 400, but in reality only sell 167. So what's more sustainable is we sell 167 shirts, we print 167 shirts. And in fact, as the orders come in, we can print them as the orders are coming in. And that way, their turn times, that's all about print on demand, is we live in and Terry said it right, we live in an Amazon drive-through world, right? Nobody likes to wait. And so if we can put it on our online store, we can sell something, and the order comes in, we have the shirts in stock, we can print them, and they can go out the door, sometimes in the same day, but usually within about a 3 business day window. And it's just a matter of just churning that through, right? And so to me, online stores, print on demand is huge. Last year we had our Shirt Lab Forge event, and we had a guy, his name is Dale Manning. He was talking about his company helped sell about $200 million worth of digital print on demand apparel through Shopify, right? That's what they do, right? And so his customers are, big rock bands and that kind of stuff, and sport teams and that type of deal. But this is a trend that's gigantically huge. It is not going away. And it becomes really a logistical issue if you try to do it with screen printing. You can't keep up, which is why DTG makes so much more sense. And I also have another point. Do I have time for that?
Yeah, let's go.
So the other point is all about variable data, right? So we're used to printing, we're used to printing a design on an edition of shirts, right? So we have one design and we're going to print it on 50 shirts or 100 shirts or 2 shirts today and 3 shirts tomorrow, okay? But with DTG digital, okay, that offers the idea of variable data. And here's an example. High school senior shirts, that's coming up, right, Jay?
Yes, it is. Thank you for reminding me. My
class of 2021. So imagine you have a design, class of 2021, and inside the big fat letters of 2021 are like photograph motif of the school or whatever, right? But one of the zeros is a big circle. What if every single senior has their photo, high school senior graduation picture, in the circle? So
Brilliant.
you have 500 graduating seniors with the same design, but every single shirt is different.
Love
You
it.
can't do that in screen printing, but you can do it with DTG,
That's right.
right?
You can
So it's
create
just a
something
matter of how you're
original.
setting up your action commands in Photoshop and importing the data and pushing it out, right? This is a business case for DTG, because if I can customize it for that senior, instead of selling them a $20 shirt, that's now a $35 shirt with about another 30 seconds worth of screwing around with it.
Yeah, and
Right?
Marshall, how many of those are going to Goodwill? Zero, because you've personalized them. Nobody's going to throw away a shirt with their picture on it,
Yeah.
even just for protection purposes. But to your point, great for add-on. Love that second point. Geoff Baxter, where do you see the decorated apparel market headed after Marshall's great explanation? Anything to add? Anything to share?
Well, I think that basically you're going to see more and more of the direct-to-garment, and I think that we were headed that way. I think it's becoming, instead of a early adopter phase, it's an additional phase where now we have more productive equipment, far more dependable equipment, and I think that as opposed to, and I have a tendency to look at it from the screen printing standpoint because that's where I come from, but I think it is going to become more of a production tool as opposed to a peripheral tool in the shop, where it was kind of left in the corner to print those odd orders that came in that were very small or needed lots of colors. And because the cost of per print and time to market and the availability to turn around very quickly, I think you're going to see, especially with the productivity going up on a reasonably priced pieces of equipment, this is going to become far more of a production tool than just a peripheral piece of equipment in the shops. And that's a big part of, I think, where it starts to tip from being just an add-on to being an integral part of the industry. I don't see it displacing screen printing, but I see it augmenting the productivity of screen printing. Even now, I think we're at that point already.
Love that answer. Even now, now is a good time to look at that. And I think there are a lot of buyers, a lot of shops in our industry that recognize that. We're seeing that here at Equipment Zone. We get these calls every day. They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to find out, where is that balance point? Where is that tipping point? How close are they? How close is their shop? And it's going to be individual for everybody. But I think now is the time to have those conversations. And thank
What
goodness we have three experts to give some insights. Go ahead, Geoff.
One other point I wanted to make, falling right into what Marshall was talking about, was variable data. And that one of the big projects I'd worked on over the last year or so was the availability or the ability to add variable data even to a general design, so that it can be used as a security function. So that if you needed to serialize or add a QR code or a barcode to the T-shirt, you can add that to each one to be able to quickly check that that is a genuine product manufactured by one of the brands. As opposed to something somebody printed in the basement and sold on eBay. So, it adds a lot of security applications as well as just or graphic variables.
Yeah, it's great. Haven't even considered that. Thank you for sharing that. That's important. Terry, to you, my friend, where do you see the decorated apparel market headed?
Well, I think that first of all, from the digital side, and Marshall kind of touched on this, I think that it's going to be a lot easier to try some new things, to roll the dice a little bit more. And I'll go back to the example of the online store. Maybe there's an online store for a high school club, and rather than say, okay, well, we think this design on this shirt's going to sell as a screen printer, this is the one we're going to go with. Let's try all three of the designs that you guys came up with. Let's put them all up there. And that's a simple matter for a digital decorator to do. And you might be surprised that the one that you weren't quite sure about really took off, and maybe you sold twice as many shirts or hats or whatever the product was. But from the other side, from we screen printers, and I think that everybody on the panel here would feel that they are in some level a master printer, meaning full color images on dark garments and 6+ screens. And I think that master printer is going to go away, or that group is going to get smaller and smaller, because today, somebody becoming a screen printer maybe is not going to say, you know, I'm going to really spend some time and learn to do simulated process and some of these types of things. What they're going to do is they're going to do what the bread and butter of screen printing is: 1 and 2 and 3 color prints, Jim's Towing, and the phone number on the back. And they're going to, when somebody comes in and says, we've got a band and we want that band's picture on a black t-shirt, I think they're going to go digital with that rather than having people on staff that have that type of expertise. I think it's going to be a technology that slowly disappears.
I think it's a point of convenience too, and all of you would probably agree with this, is that the artistry or the artisan, the actual craft of the maker, that maker mentality, someone who's creating artwork, someone who's creating screens, someone who's pulling a squeegee, that artisan, there are fewer and fewer of them. People want to hit the blue button or the red button or whatever it is, and boom, here goes the magic off the back end of that printer. So excellent insights, all three of you. I'm gonna kind of shift now just to give an individual question, if you don't mind. Let me ask Marshall, because I know you do a lot of coaching and you've seen a lot of different sizes of shops, different technologies in those shops, and you're constantly giving people some insights there. What do you say? What are some of the advantages to blending that decorating technology mix? Maybe there's some listeners here that are thinking, great, I just bought an automatic screen printing machine, and now you guys are telling me it's all about DTG printing. Maybe there's a place in the middle there where there's a little bit of that blended technology. You're going to have, for lack of a better description, analog technology, screen printing, and you're going to have digital technology, the DTG printing machine. Do you see a blend? Do you see that happening?
Yes, and here's what I recommend you do is get out a yellow legal pad, and I want you to do a time study. So you put an order in the system and it goes to the art department, and we got to make the steps. Then it goes to the screen room, and we got to burn the screens. We got to get the screens ready. Then we got to take it to the press. We got to register the screens. We got to do all that work, right? So I want you to measure every step along the way and how long does it take, right? Now, there's also a longer print run. It's going to make sense to do it screen printing because unless you buy a higher end DTG machine, you're only going to get about 40 an hour, 35 an hour or something, right? So there comes a point in time where I'm just looking at your production scheduling and what it costs you to get a job out and the labor and how many people that you have, right?
Right.
So we just went through COVID, and if you're a shop that had 20 people, you might have 12 now. If you're a shop that had 10 people, you might have 6 now, right? And so what's really great, I think, about DTG is the fact that you can turn things faster sometimes than you can in screen printing with less labor involved, because there's really just one person hitting the button and loading the shirts and doing the thing, rather than it going through multiple departments of work.
Right.
Okay. So you need to do your own cost study. What does it cost per impression for you to do a job? And I would argue the sweet spot to me is under a case of shirts, right? I think over a case of shirts, it makes total sense to do it screen printing. Under a case of shirts, I would argue that in a lot of cases, you can get it out faster, maybe cheaper with a DTG print. Now, of course, it depends on what it is and what's going on.
Sure,
right?
there are going to be variables, number of colors.
But I want everybody to do their own math. This is really important. And if you haven't done the math yet, you should already have this information. You should already know this stuff, right? Because this is how your pricing starts, is understanding your costs to begin with. So if you haven't done a cost study to begin with, you're already behind, right? Yeah. But you need to understand this, what it takes to push things through your shop. Also for scheduling, everybody wants it now, right? And I talk to lots of shops, as you know, right? Yep. So what is your turn time in reality? Not what you tell people, but what is it right now? right? And is it 10 business days? Is it 7 business days? Is it 5 business days? I can tell you that a lot of people, orders come in on say Monday, they want to pick them up Friday, right? That's with artwork, that's with getting shirts in, that's with everything, okay? And if you've got to burn screens and get everything set up and write a shirt and all that kind of stuff, and it's only for 36 shirts, okay?
Yeah, you're not gonna.
The same amount of time that you're putting into screen printing, you could have that job already done with DTG.
I love that. I love
I
that.
know tons of shops who stock common colors, white, black, gray, and team color. Here in Arizona, it might be red, right? For the Cardinals. If you're in, New Jersey, like, Jeff is, maybe it's Philly green, okay? So team color, stock to have a case or two of each size on your floor. And as people order, you can just replace those. But now with the DTG, you can turn stuff in the same day, the next day, in 2 business days after they order it. And it's really hard for a traditional screen printer to match that because they have so many other steps to go through. So but if you did your own math, look at your time, look at what it costs, look at your labor, figure all that out, and then compare screen printing to digital, right? Then it's easier for you to make a decision that's more applicable to your current situation.
Marshall, I love what you said. If I heard you correctly, there are advantages to keeping a blended decorated technology mix. You will continue to screen print,
Yeah.
but you will continue to have a DTG machine and let your math dictate for you and look at some real data and figure out, well, here's where we've been the last 2 years. And that might be a little tricky because we did come through a pandemic and that was like a reset for everybody. But I loved your answer. And I'm gonna switch just a little bit. I was about to ask Terry a question, but since you talked so much about this idea of the break-even point and the comparison of screen printing to DTG printing, what I'd like to do is go to Jeff. I'm going to go out of order here, guys. So be careful. I'm breaking the rules. I know.
You're gonna mess us up, Jay.
We are no longer in alphabetical order, actually. So Geoff Baxter, this is why I wanted you on this session, was to kind of dovetail what Marshall just said. Is I know from things that I've read that you've written and from personal talks that we've had that you often talk about the cost of the first shirt, right? Shirt number 1. And you talk about these things and these comparisons and these break-even points. And maybe you could speak to that. Like you could give us some more insights on how to define that, how to figure out that information, and then what do we do with that information? How would we apply it?
Well, I think Marshall actually just addressed a lot of what I was going to talk about, but along that same vein, I like to look at it. It's a really easy way to kind of do your cost justifications is the cost of the first shirt. And what I'm looking at here is if you were to screen print a shirt, you take a design, and this is completely dependent. It's a sliding scale based on the number of colors, the complexity of the artwork. So there are a lot of factors go into this. But if you take the cost of the first shirt, let's say we've got an 8 or a 10 color design, you've got to do the color separations. So we're paying an artist to do that. You've got to print your films and or print the screens on a CTS unit. You've got to produce the screens. You've got to develop the screens. You've got to shut down your press. So you're paying people to set up the press. And at the same time, you're losing revenue because that press is no longer producing revenue while it's being set up. So we've got the cost of lost revenue, the cost of setup. We've got the run time, then we've got the teardown time, the cleanup time. Basically, what I see on an 8 to 10 color shirt is it's probably most of my calculations have come out to somewhere between $400 and $600 by the time you get that first shirt off. A screen printing, the second one's going to cost you about 35 cents, 25 to 35 cents. But that first one's $400 to $600. So you've got to amortize that over the length of the run. If you look at a digital printer, we're looking at somewhere between 75 cents to $1 for that first shirt. So that tipping point, if it costs $400, that tipping point might be 4 or even 500 shirts before we've amortized the cost of that initial first print. Other things to keep in mind are, the quality of the print, because very often, as much as I hate to say it as a 40-year screen printer, digital printing is better than most things I can print most of the time. So there are, in my opinion, probably a dozen, maybe 24 people in the world who can print at the quality of a high quality DTG print. So it allows us to print a higher quality. to get to market faster, and much less expensive than the cost of an initial screen setup in a lot of situations. If it's a one color design, your tipping point is going to be much lower. It might be a dozen shirts. Compared to a 10 color design that might be 500 to 600 shirts. And so you're going to have to figure that out. I have put together some little calculators that can help with that really easily, but that's one of those things you have to work on. One other point that a lot of people don't think about, but obviously one of the considerations now that everybody's thinking about is the sustainability issues. And if you look at the amount, just the water consumed in creating a 6 to 10 color screen print design, I've calculated that out at about 60 gallons to set up, to make the screens, reclaim the screens, clean the screens, everything that goes into it. So between 50 and 60 gallons of water is used, where essentially no water is used. There is no effluent in a direct-to-garment type print. So that's just another thing to think about in that cost of the first shirt.
No, I'm glad you brought it up, and it's not a surprise to me, but maybe to some of our listeners, that you brought up sustainability once, and so has Marshall. I think it's an important concept.
Can I add to that, Jay?
Yeah, as long as you can do it in a minute or less.
Well, I actually did a study when I was running a shop in Wisconsin, and DTG printing is using energy, because we hooked up energy meters to all of our equipment, is about 75% less costly and energy wise than traditional analog screen printing. So it's not just water, you're using less energy.
That's outstanding.
Good point.
I appreciate you adding that, Marshall. That was epic. These are the types of wisdom, knowledge bombs that I knew that the three of you would be able to drop, because you've not only walked the walk, but you've been behind the scenes doing some hard work, asking some tough questions, and digging through this in a non-biased way. You're not doing it to promote a specific brand. You're trying to help shops win. And that's what I've loved about your servant mentality, your leadership, and the style of training that all three of you have. So forgive me for gushing again, but I can't help myself. So thank you for making those great points. Terry, to you, back out of order now, because you were involved in the early days of the T-Jet, and because you've seen a lot of evolution since those days. And I don't know if it was 15, 16, 17 years. Maybe you could correct me. How long has it been?
Now it would be 17 years. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. It's gone by like that. So 17 years ago, you saw that first kind of, it was impressive yet scary. But we fast forward to today, and there's been a lot of things that have changed, a lot of new evolution, a lot of new technology. Would you consider, or would you say that maybe we have crossed that technology tipping point? Like, there's really no reason to fear this? I hear a lot of people are still maybe buying in on these 10-year-old misinformation loops, I call them. What would you say to that? How could you explain why maybe now is a great time and the tipping point is here?
Hey, before I do that, I want to really quickly say to all of our screen printing friends out there, don't worry, don't start stressing out. All of my screen printing classes that I do, my hands-on classes, all of them are sold out. Screen printing is here to stay. Don't worry about that. It's just gonna be a different part of our business. But everybody here.
I love that. Terry's like, don't panic. It's okay.
But everybody here on the panel knows Scott Fresner. I'm sure he's a friend to all of us. And Scott owned U.S. Screen Printing. He famously would say about the early direct-to-garment printers, we're not on the cutting edge. We're on the bleeding edge of technology, because it was hard. It was hard to make money with those machines. And a lot of people did, but it was early in the process. But, and I like to compare it with buying a car at the beginning of the previous century. You had to have a little bit of expendable income. You had to be a little bit handy with a hammer and a screwdriver. So it was the same with direct-to-garment. But today, the dependability, the repeatability, the efficiency, we're there. Now, there are still machines out there that are repurposed paper printers, but there's also several machines out there that are true commercial printing machines that you come in the morning, you turn it on, and you start printing shirts. And so, and add to that, I know a lot of decorators today that are very, very profitable in a digital heavy production environment, you know. And let me add one more thing, Jay, that whole stigma of DTG printing, where people would see those prints and see that pre-treat box, that stiff box around the image area, that perception that, well, it's a novelty item, a novelty print that's not going to hold up. I think that whole stigma is going away, and especially as more people realize that shirt you're wearing, that was a DTG printed shirt. You think it's a screen print, you think it's this, you think it's that. DTG is certainly here to stay, and it's reached that point where you can be very, very profitable, very, very efficient doing it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Terry. That was excellent. All three of you had wonderful answers. I want to go to this last question and ask the three of you. Let's not go too long on our answers, only because if we can, I want to share some time with our audience and see if they have any questions. But I've noticed this, and this is why I asked you this question. Our print run shrinking. Our buyers actually ordering less quantities, but ordering more often. So to the three of you, let's go back in our order, Marshall, then Geoff, then Terry. Marshall, what do you say to this question? Do you have any answer? Have you seen something that you can share with our audience about the print run shrinking?
Sure. My answer is yes.
Okay, then let's move on to Geoff. No.
No, it's true. We could just leave it at that, or print run shrinking. So when you're like, if you're a print shop right now, do a study. I'm a big study guy. I'm all about the math. Pull up your average order size last year. Of course, last year's kind of weird. So maybe go to 2019, 2018, whatever. And I want you to look at your average order size. Is it getting smaller? Is it getting bigger? Right? And then also, what is the number of orders that you're pulling in? Are you pulling in lots of smaller orders? Because for a lot of shops, that's indeed the case. And so I think this technology sells itself when you just do the math.
I love that. So the answer is yes. Geoff, what do you say? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think there's no question about it. In fact, I've done studies, and I've been involved in studies that while garment consumption is going way up from printed sportswear, the per SKU is going way down, as far as the number of shirts run. I can remember I had a customer here in town I used to do a lot of work with in Philadelphia. They would print for the cigarette companies, and it was nothing for them to get an order for 2.3 million large white T-shirts. I mean, those days are gone. Those don't exist anymore. The average order size, I believe, and most people I talk to is around 244, and even going down from there now. So order sizes are getting smaller, and I think this is a great way to be able to service that quickly. Great example too, based upon the pandemic, and I've been real involved with this part of the industry in the last year or two, is that the retailers, because a lot of them lost access to their bricks and mortar stores, had to go more and more e-commerce. The ones who were already e-commerce savvy got bigger and bigger. Some of the others really had some issues with it, and this allows them to control that inventory for both e-commerce and for bricks and mortar fulfillment, in that they can have minimum amounts rather than having to spend millions of dollars on inventory. So there's no question that while the orders are going down, they're probably only going to go down further and further, post-pandemic, because I think this has accelerated that, retail apocalypse that we were going through to start with.
So the retailers have that to contend with, and then they're leaning on many of the apparel decorators in our industry to help figure that out.
Absolutely.
Terry, what do you say? What do you think? Comments?
I want to ask Geoff, that million cigarette shirts, was it Lucky Strike, and was it 1960 on Mad Men?
Well, it was up until Bill Clinton said you couldn't advertise cigarettes on T-shirts anymore. It was usually from Newport, and I supplied the ink, and it was fluorescent green, lots and lots of fluorescent.
Back in the day, as they
back in the day. Well, yeah, Jay, it's not your imagination.
Okay.
Prints, and I haven't been an active printer in a lot of years, but I know obviously a lot of printers, and I have a buddy in the Midwest that has multiple automatic presses. And I remember, gosh, it was 24 months ago, him complaining to me that my 10,000 piece customers now want to order 500 pieces and 500 pieces and 500 pieces. And here's my theory on that. I think it started out that they wanted to stop sending mistake purchases to an outlet store. And then I think COVID turned it into a cash flow inventory situation. But yeah, absolutely. The shorter run is here to stay, I believe.
So on top of that, would you guys add that this technology also opens up new doors, like direct to consumer doors that previously maybe they didn't think about or weren't entertaining?
Well, hey, can I jump in real quick? I think Geoff Baxter made the best point on this whole part of the conversation. The number of pieces people are buying is skyrocketing. It's just we're doing it in smaller bites.
Yeah, that is great. I agree. That's been the feedback, and from what I hear from other experts like yourselves, as well as the feedback I get from talking to customers all the time, that's what they're seeing, and they're trying to figure out an e-commerce approach. They're trying to figure out a direct to consumer approach, or they're trying to figure out how to manage this new business where my total quantity is pretty close to where it was before, but I'm getting more orders and less volume per order. So it's a shift. And to Marshall always making this great point, do your math, do your work, figure it out so that you're prepared. Um, all right, so let's do this now. Unless you guys have anything to add in terms of closing remarks, we've got a few minutes left that we held open on purpose to sort through. If we have anybody that wants to ask our esteemed colleagues an amazing question or not, just to check in with them. I'll open this up in the chat if you don't mind, because all of us can see the chat. So if you have a question for Marshall or Terry or Geoff, this would be a great time to do that. I have one, I have a trick question just in case people don't want to participate, but I believe they will. So let's see what we get. While we are waiting here, Terry, there was a point that somebody said something about the good old T-Jet 2 days. They said, if you can fix a T-Jet 2, you can fix anything.
They also said it actually printed very well. Among the printers that were converted over paper printers, I don't think there was ever a better printer than the T-Jet 2. It's,
that's good.
we still get calls asking for parts, and US Screen went out of business now 10 years ago. So
Yeah, right. Okay, so here's a hard question from Mark Cameron, and because someone else asked it, speak freely. We are here to impart wisdom and not pitch products. So let's go back in order from Marshall to Geoff to Terry. Marshall, in your mind, in your estimation, could you name off 3 leading DTG printers?
Well, I always mess up the Epson model number, and I bet Terry knows what it is. I always mess that up. So there's an Epson that probably outsells everyone, right?
Yeah.
The Brother GTX Pro is probably right in that discussion also. And then I know a lot of people have the M&R, right? So I don't know how they rank because I don't have those, those sales
That's
numbers.
okay.
But
That wasn't
when
the
I talk to
question.
shops, those are the ones that everybody owns. One of those 3. What is the Epson model, Terry, that everybody buys?
it's the F2100. That's
F2100,
70%. 70% of the DTG market is Epson F2100.
Yep.
Let's go to Geoff. Geoff, what would you say?
Yeah, and I kind of along the same line. And the very high end, obviously, Kornit owns that market. There are only a few machines, but that's also very, very expensive equipment. And the means grounds, I think you've got the Epson, especially with their new F3070, and the Brother GTX Pro are both very nice printers. And then you've got your lower end equipment for the real small stuff. But I think that at the price point, the 2100 is probably the thing that owns the biggest part of the market is a starter printer, not a high production printer, but a great starter printer.
Well, that's good feedback. And Terry, you're completely biased, so we're not going to even ask you. No, go ahead,
Okay.
Terry.
Well, as I said, the Epson F2100 is 70% of the DTG marketplace worldwide. So if you ask 10 people, 7 of them on the Epson F2100 or the F2000. Now, of course, the new Epson F3070. Beyond that, probably quality wise of equipment is going to be the Brother GTX or the Brother GTX Pro, and then as Geoff mentioned, Kornit on the high cost end of that. So those would be the 3 leading machines in the marketplace, though.
So Terry, let me give you a follow-up question, since I know you know a little bit more about this, not to dive in on a sales pitch, but that F3070 seems to be reaching a different market. Like if the 2100 was kind of like an entry level to what Marshall said, you might get 30, 40, maybe you could knock on the door of a few more per hour. What is the F3070 designed to do, and how does that help us in this marketplace?
Well, the F3070, it's the exact same ink system, the ink product as the F2100. So you're going to get the same print, but it's going to print a shirt in less than a minute. It's going to print a shirt for less than half the cost of the F2100. You're talking about if you treat it like a real production machine, you could literally get that 50 to 60 shirts an hour at a cost of maybe 75 cents a print. So now you're getting into that territory where you're not competing completely on ink cost with screen printing, but you're getting closer to it. So and what we're seeing is with the F3070, that's the machine where somebody's going to maybe pick up two of them. One person can run two of those machines, a conveyor dryer, and then you're talking about what Geoff was saying, where, hey, at 400 shirts, all of a sudden, you can go that high with direct to garment and still be competitive.
Great point. Great point. Okay, well, with the time remaining, I think I'll just kick it back to the three of you. If you'd like to make any final points, first of all, I want to again appreciate you for spending some time here. I think this is an important conversation to have. What we're trying to do is we're trying to help more shops win, bottom line. And so with the better information from these three experts, I think that you'll do that. You'll be more prepared to at least ask better questions than previously. And then, of course, reach out to them. You can find Geoff Baxter on LinkedIn. You can find Marshall Atkinson on every platform all the time. You can find Terry Combs at Equipment Zone, obviously. So when we think about this topic, final questions, guys, for you, is there anything we should be asking? Like, I'm a big believer in ask the right questions so that you get better answers. Is there anything, let's go in order again, Marshall to you, then Geoff, then Terry. Is there anything else we should be asking on this topic?
Well, thank you, Jay, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. My final comment is about fear. Okay, and fear, I don't know if you know this, is an acronym. Did you know that, Jay?
I have read this, yes.
Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. So if you're wondering why do people get DTG, and I've heard all these horror stories and blah, 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 okay, I want to let you know that you probably heard it in all of my answers to Jay's questions. You need to do your own research and need to do your own planning and need to understand your costs and get the real data, not somebody else's data, not somebody else's opinion, right? You need to form your own decisions based on what's applicable to you, your customers, and your business needs, right? This means that you're not false evidence appearing real. You're using the real information to make a solid business decision that's going to make you money. That's what you need. So that's my answer.
I love it. Don't buy into the fear. Fear is a liar. Thank you, Marshall. That was some more wisdom. I appreciate you wrapping up with that. Geoff Baxter, thanks again for joining us. Would you have anything that you would want to close? Is there a question we should be asking?
I think, Marshall really hit it on the head with the fear part of it, because I think a big part of it too is that because of the people who were early adopters in the industry, there is a great deal of misinformation and fear. And you have to realize that we've come a long way from the old days and that this is a much more viable technology. When I talk to people, I say, you can't really sell a machine to somebody until you've sold them on the technology itself, because a lot of people really don't have a good taste in their mouth about the DTG technology, especially if they were an early adopter. So I think it's the same thing. Don't go into it thinking it's what it was 10 or 15 years ago, and certainly evaluate it for your own situation. Don't listen to anybody else's opinions about the equipment or the technology in general.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Do your own homework, follow through, and don't buy into the fear. I love it. That's twice now you guys have mirrored each other with no planning. That was authentically these two just saying, look, figure it out for yourself, and where do you fit in this arc of your business development. Terry, let's close it up. What have you got for us? Any questions we should have asked today, or is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I don't know if it's a question, but I just love listening to Marshall and to Geoff, and especially when they start talking about, well, like Marshall talking about having a business plan, and Marshall, I was picturing some screen printer out there going, "Hey, I print T-shirts in my garage. I'm out." But don't be out. Even if you print T-shirts in your garage, you need that business plan. And Geoff talking about tracking things, and Marshall as well. So here's not a question but advice: be your own consultant. And by that I mean get your head out of the machine and take some time to study your business, watch your processes, take your junior legal pad, like Marshall was mentioning, and start tracking some things and see where you are and where you're making money and where you're not making money, and study your business and be a student of your business. And I will end on be your own consultant. You don't need to call us right away.
I love it. Perfect. Well, listen, thank you again. I'm going to end with just a couple of slides so people can know where they can go to get more information. Equipment Zone has done a wonderful job of creating a community with their F2100 DTG users group on Facebook. We have 1,100 members now, so I'm going to have to update the slide. And this is a great place for support. We're not here to tear each other down. We're here to support each other, cheerlead, answer tough questions on the weekends when Equipment Zone isn't open. You'll see Roy in there all the time, and other techs, myself trying to answer questions. Occasionally Terry when he's not traveling worldwide on his yacht. But otherwise, this is a great place to go grab some info. You're welcome to join. Just ask and we'll let you in. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you didn't know, we have one. YouTube is a great place. You'll find all of today's presenters probably have been involved in some form of a webinar that was recorded and is probably on YouTube. I know Marshall has a dedicated channel, as does Equipment Zone. So we'd love to see you subscribe, because every time we drop some more wisdom, we try to do that on a couple of times per month basis. You're going to automatically be notified. So join us on YouTube. And then finally, just to say thank you to all of you again. So this was a great webinar. We're ending on time. We appreciate everyone who attended, and this was recorded, so we'll be sharing this soon in the next couple of days. I want to say thanks and goodbye. Everybody stay safe, and thank you for tuning in today to Equipment Zone's training webinar. Thanks to Marshall Atkinson, thanks to Geoff Baxter, and thanks to Terry Combs. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jay.